Okay. My name is Samantha Egly, and this is my oral exam. All right. So Nicholas Tinbergen stated the key to understanding animal behavior is careful observations and asking the right kind of questions. So first, the 4 questions. The first 2 are proximate questions. So the first one is causation, also known as mechanism. How does the body produce behavior, and what signals elicit behavior? And what are the causes? What causes behavior to be performed? Number 2 is development, also known as ontogeny. How does a behavior develop during the lifetime of an individual, and what influences its final form through experience and learning? The last 2 are ultimate questions. So there's function, also known as adaptation, and that's how do behaviors help animals survive and reproduce? Why does it help increase their fitness? Number 4, the last one, is evolution, also known as phylogeny. How did older generations via natural selection contribute to the development of their behavior, and how did the behavior evolve? So for my question is, why do felines need? So causation, why is kneading produced? Also referred as making biscuits. So the cat may push out and pull in with its front paws against a surface such as furniture, carpet, blankets, and it'll alternate between the right and left limbs. Number 2, development. How does kneading develop? So it starts as newborn kittens, also known as just juvenile behavior, where they knead on their mother's abdomen. They can knead onto a blanket, an area, and say, "This is mine." It's for a territorial focus. And so evolution. How did kneading evolve in certain species? So the behavior evolves as the cat increases in age by the fact of when they decide to knead. So it's an ancestral behavior. So like I said previously, they do it for milk production as kittens, and then they bring that juvenile behavior into adulthood. So like I said also as well previously, that they do it before they either take a nap, go to sleep, just as a stretch, just like humans do to stretch out their arms right before they go to bed, or indicating that they are tired. Okay, so the proximate control behavior, it involves hormones. So the 2 main ways hormones affect behavior are organizational effects and activational effects. So organizational effects of hormones cause the development of the nervous system and behavior to proceed along separate developmental pathways, such as masculine and feminine. An example would be estrogens. Estrogens have powerful organizational effects on the development of in the case of rodents, the central nervous system during critical periods of perinatal development through the modulation of several key molecular events. And I listed 4 molecular events onto the screen. Activational effects means a transient hormonal effect that typically causes a short-term change in behavior or physiological activity in adult animals. So an example is compensatory hypertrophy. Although it's structural, it also is dependent on hormone levels. So the difference between each effect is the time it lasts for or when it happens during an individual's lifetime. Organizational effects are long-lasting that happen in early development versus activational effects, which are temporary and due to current circulating levels of a hormone. Okay, so there are 2 main types of behavioral studies. It is cross-sectional and longitudinal. So Cross-sectional correlation study is when data is collected from a population at a specific point in time, although also known as a snapshot. It does not involve manipulating variables, and it allows researchers to look at numerous characteristics at once. So an example I came up with, I was explaining to epidemiologists who are interested in the current prevalence of a disease in a certain subset of a population. What I was thinking of is prevalence of herpes virus in domestic cats living in a shelter during a certain time, which I was saying during the winter of 2020. So that is a certain group of cats at one time, a snapshot of how many cats have that virus. So a longitudinal correlation study is when researchers repeatedly examine the same individuals to detect any changes that might occur over a period of time. So my example was studying 5 cats who live in a household where the owner smokes cigarettes over a period of 5 years and the effect of the cigarette smoke it has on the feline lungs. Okay, so the difference between each study is that cross-sectional studies interview a fresh sample of people each time the study is carried out, whereas a longitudinal study follows the same sample of people over a period of time. So the advantages of a cross-sectional study, it allows researchers to compare many different variables at the same time. It's also cheap and a quick study, and the data works for various types of research. Although this has some advantages, it also has some drawbacks, including not being able to determine cause and effect. The snapshot timing may not be representative, and the study could be flawed if there's a conflict of interest. So longitudinal study, the advantages, so it's able to show the patterns of variables over time. It ensures clear focus, validity, and accuracy. It's effective in doing research on developmental trends, and it's pretty flexible. Just like cross-sectional studies, longitudinal studies also have disadvantages, such as requiring huge amount of time and a large sample size. They also risk gathering data that is not 100% reliable, and they can be more expensive to carry through. So types of communications. There's cooperative, dishonest, incidental, and spiteful. The first one I'll go over is cooperative. So it's any behavior by an individual, which is a sender, that increases the fitness of the other individual, which is the receiver. So I was doing ants, they're eusocial animals. So when a group of ants move prey back inside to the nest, they're not strong enough just for one ant to do it. So they have to do multiple ants to carry the prey into its colony. And ants also form a raft to float on the water. This behavior helps ants survive floods where other insects would perish. So ultimately, it's a net benefit for both the sender and the receiver. So the benefits of both behaviors is feeding and saving the colony so future generations can grow and thrive. I was thinking one cost would be some individuals may die in the process of saving the colony. So dishonest signaling. That is when the sender sends out false information to the receiver. It doesn't always imply conscious deception, but the information is false. So my example was the fiddler crab. So males of this species are known for having one large claw, which they use when fighting for a mate. If a fiddler crab loses its claw in the fight, another claw will grow back in its place. But this replacement claw is usually lighter and weaker, although it's the same size. However, it remains a dishonest visual signal. So that visual signal can also, it scares off other males and could potentially attract a mate. So ultimately, it has a positive net benefit for the sender and a negative net cost for the receiver. So the male crab showing its weaker yet same size claw can ward off other males, and hopefully that sender can gain a mate through it. But the receiver is being tricked. Okay, so incidental cue. So the receiver detects the feature associated with the sender, but the feature did not evolve to guide. I'm sorry, my cat is Noah, stop. To guide or alter receiver's behavior. Any feature that an organism can use as a guide to display a particular behavior or series of behaviors. So my example was a mouse running across a patch of dry leaves, and an owl hears and swoops down to catch and eat the rodent. Ultimately, the sender has a negative net cost, the mouse getting caught and being eaten, and the receiver, the owl, has a positive net benefit, hearing the rodent and catching a bite to eat. So the last one is spiteful signaling. So when a behavior is both costly to perform and costly for the receiver. So my example was male cats killing their offspring, usually in the wild. It can be big cats, domestic cats, even though they are not hungry, but they do it out of spite. They don't want any other male cats roaming around their territory. Ultimately, there's a negative net cost for both the sender and receiver. The offspring get killed and the sender does not really benefit at all. Okay. So for the last question, the publication, The Polar Bear Foraging on Common Eider Eggs. So the major species that are involved are the polar bears and the common eider ducks. The paper also mentions other types of species. It mentions little auks, thick-billed murres, black guillemots, lesser snow geese, barnacle geese, and Glockhouse gulls. It also mentions, in comparison, what they're talking about, that the polar bear and the eggs is lynx, snowshoe hares, and caribou as well. So the study site location is on the Canadian Arctic. It's held at the East Bay Migratory Bird Sanctuary on Midivik Island in Canada. So it serves as an important summering ground for polar bears. So the purpose of study. With climate change, it's expected to decouple traditional predator-prey relationships and alter a species' ability to access their primary food resource, which for polar bears, it's on the ice and catching seals. The purpose of the study is to examine variation in individual polar bear foraging behaviors and estimated energetic benefits and costs associated with foraging on common eider eggs, which polar bears have incorporated into their diet during the summer seasons, the ice-free season. Flexible foraging strategies, also known as prey switching, has become increasingly important if climatic changes cause temporal and spatial shifts in primary prey availability. Therefore, quantifying the energetic consequences of foraging on novel resources is becoming a major focus for ecologists studying the adaptive capacity of animals responding to human-induced rapid ecological change. Is it plausible that this type of foraging and calorie consumption can contribute to necessary energetic gains for the polar bears during these summer months? So the methodology used, pretty much they used aerial drones, aerial footage to videotape polar bears. They used a specialized drone, the DJI Phantom 3 Pro and 4 Pro drones, to record polar bears foraging on eider eggs from July 10th to 20th of 2017 between the hours of 05:30 and 20:30. So the drone pilots and the observer stood on the rooftop of the research building and launched and landed the drone within an electrified fence that surrounds the research building. Filming started as soon as they spotted a polar bear, and they try to focus at one bear at a time as well. So they spotted the polar bear on the island, and then they finished when the bear either went to sleep or left the island. Researchers differentiated bears in order to track individuals' foraging behaviors. They had a pretty interesting way of differentiating each bear just by conspicuous markings, the size, the time of date of filming, and if they did not recognize that bear, they would say that is a new bear. That is not one that we've seen before. The study had 20 individual bears that they saw, and they had 65 drone flights and 995 minutes of recorded observations of polar bears foraging freely. The estimated energetic expenditures derived from existing literature studies on polar bears bioenergetics. The study, with this literature, the study can estimate the energetic benefits and costs of observed foraging behaviors on the island. So the summarizing calculations. So they use the Solomon coder to analyze polar bear foraging behavior. The study estimated energetic gains for each foraging bout on the number of clutches each polar bear consumes. Energetic value for each clutch was estimated on an estimate of the caloric content of the eider eggs and the mean clutch size of the eggs at the island, and the polar bear's ability to digest the protein and the fat. The calculations result in an estimation that each clutch provides polar bears with about 2,800 kilojoules worth of energy. The study estimated the energetic cost of foraging in an eider colony based on the amount of energy used and time spent searching for and handling eider eggs. They used rates per minute and weighed the data to account for the contribution of longer length videos. And then here's the calculation was VO2 equals 0.44 plus 0.12 times speed to describe the energetic cost of movement for polar bears. So the findings and conclusions. Recorded polar bears consumed a total of 443 clutches in the eider duck colony on the island. And as the season progressed, bears consumed clutches at a decelerating rate until the colony depleted to a point where locating nests proved challenging. Earlier in the season, bears consumed greater than 20 clutches during 10 of 24 bouts and greater than 10 during 15 of 24 foraging bouts. In the last 3 days of filming, all bears consumed less than 8 clutches, and 3 of those individuals consumed 0 clutches. So as the season progressed, the time bears spent searching between nests increased. Because of low costs associated with the nest searching and consumption, the energetic cost of foraging remained relatively constant throughout the 2-week observation period. However, it was found that as the common eider breeding season progressed, polar bears consumed eggs at a lower rate as they depleted the nesting colony and spent proportionally more time searching for nests. Collectively, the foraging pattern led to an overall declining trend in the net energy gained from egg consumption. Foraging on eggs is only beneficial for the polar bears during a limited window of opportunity. Foraging on eider eggs provides an energetic benefit to those polar bears arriving on the island in late June and early July. By contrast to those polar bears arriving later, experiencing diminishing returns due to resource depletion. The clutch consumption rates decline nearly linearly as a result of decreasing encounter rates. All right, so pretty much the result is this terrestrial diet may benefit bears that arrive early to a colony. Bears ultimately deplete the resource for themselves and for those individuals arriving later. This evidence reinforces the importance of seal hunting on ice to the overall persistence of polar bears. Here's some of the publications that I used and got some information on my PowerPoint. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed it.